I concluded my two-day visit to China after official talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Vietnamese President Luong Chuong, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, and informal meetings with a dozen other heads of state, with official negotiations with Chinese President Xi Jinping. I stressed to President Xi that China and Slovakia share the same views on peace, as well as opposition to fascism, which in Slovakia was embodied in the Slovak national uprising. Without any exaggeration, I can say that Sino-Slovak relations are becoming closer and closer, and we are even beginning to play an active role in relations between the European Union and China. I last met President Xi in November of last year, so we were able to assess the progress made in our mutual relations. Among other things, I must welcome the fact that in 2026, Slovak tourists will continue to be able to travel to China without visas. In the past 10 months alone, the number of Slovak tourists has increased by almost 15,000, and interest continues to grow. So much so that we once again discussed the possibility of a direct flight connection between Bratislava and Beijing. I especially recommend to those blockheads in the opposition and the anti-state, anti-government media that they make use of this opportunity and visit China. Their jaws will remain dropped for 2 weeks after they return. The president promised Slovakia's cooperation in issuing licenses for the export of Chinese rare earths and minerals to Slovakia, which we urgently need for the functioning of our industry. After the launch of the battery manufacturing investment by Goshen, the Chinese government is also interested in supporting other major Chinese investors and activities in Slovakia. A good political and economic dialogue will continue to develop thanks to the strategic partnership we signed in November last year, to which both governments are giving due attention. I believe that the Slovak Cultural Institute in Beijing and the Chinese Cultural Institute in Bratislava will soon become a reality. Proof of mutual trust is President Xi's announcement that he will visit Slovakia during his trip to Europe. Our talks also had a significant political component relating to peace in Ukraine, reform of the international community, and the assessment of the impact of yesterday's celebrations in Beijing on the international political situation. I reiterated that while others may place emphasis on the military parade, I personally consider the political messages expressed yesterday to be far more important. These cannot be overlooked or ignored. EU leaders can bury their heads in the sand as much as they want. The EU today, thanks to its short-sightedness in world politics and infatuation with itself, is not on the second track, but perhaps already on the third. At the very end of our visit to China, although the highlight was the meeting with President Xi, we were invited to a dinner hosted by Chinese Vice President Han Zheng. We also visited our embassy in Beijing, where the diplomatic mission organized a special event on the occasion of the Slovak National Uprising, or Constitution Day. There were many interesting people there, and the large attendance only confirms that Slovakia is of great interest in this region. And as has already been confirmed, we are heading straight to eastern Slovakia to be available tomorrow for talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko. Since European Council President Antonio Costa will also be present at that time, an informal meeting with him cannot be ruled out. Have a nice day in Slovakia.